Here's your money briefing for Tuesday, August 22nd. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal. Tackling a list of household chores can be overwhelming, so some couples are dividing up the to-do list, assuming the roles of CFO and COO to get everything done. Wall Street Journal personal finance reporter Julia Carpenter joins me. So, Julia, why are couples taking this formal step to divide up the tasks? Shouldn't it just be as simple as making a list of who does what?
Simple sounds nice, but as one expert I spoke to said, for a lot of couples, the reality of day-to-day living is just chaos. There's a lot to do, especially if people have kids, have other caregiving responsibilities, both people are working busy jobs. There's just not enough time in the day to make a new list every day and divide a new set of chores every day.
So couples you spoke with have a CFO, a chief financial officer, and a COO, a chief operating officer. So let's start with the COO. What are their household duties?
This is the person who's in charge of the day-to-day running of the household. I like to say this is the person who's making sure that the trains run on time. They're booking the appointments. They're managing the calendar. They're keeping their eye on what needs to happen next. It's a very crucial role to keep things moving.
And the CFO handles the money?
The CFO handles the money, but it's also just not as simple as like they're the one who pays the bills. They're the one who's doing the budgeting. They're the one who's managing the investments. They're the one who's price comparison shopping or making sure that, that next big purchase is actually within reach.
So what is it that makes this dual job arrangement work?
So when I've spoken with couples who do this, they say that it works because they each have their own sphere of control. So a lot of where conflict arises in a relationship around money is when both people don't really agree about what to do or don't agree about how to do something. So when you go ahead and agree, you're in charge of operations, you're in charge of finances. That gives each of you your own sense of autonomy. It preserves that autonomy that we really kind of sacrifice when we combine finances and decide to combine financial futures.
And it sounds like they're just playing into each other's strengths.
Yes. Ideally, the person who is the COO is the most organized person. They're the one who maybe just naturally wakes up a little bit earlier. They're the one who likes booking things and knowing what's happening and managing the calendar. And the CFO is naturally somebody who listens to personal finance podcasts like this one or already does spreadsheets and budgeting as part of their job. Where it becomes a problem is when both people are shoehorned into those roles without really thinking about who is best or most natural or most inclined or maybe has the most time for those roles.
So what are the benefits of separating out these roles?
There's a couple that come to mind right away. One is that when you separate out these roles, you're allowing both people also to build expertise in these roles. When you start doing a task repeatedly and you're not just trading off with your partner who does things because one of you is free, then you get good at it. If you're the one who's always managing the calendar, you're going to get really good at knowing when everyone has to get to everything and thinking into the future. If you're the one who's managing the investments, you're going to get really familiar with managing those investments and understanding what that means for your money. The other thing that comes to mind too is that separating the roles necessitates talking to one another. So if you're the one who is planning travel for the foreseeable future, then you have to talk to the CFO to understand how much money we have for travel. So even though you're not the one who's bogged down with the task or the chore of doing that, you're able to then talk to the person who's an expert in that and get their insight in order to plan.
You also heard from couples who said it wasn't quite as harmonious. What did they tell you about that?
Yeah, part of the issue is communication. So if you divide these roles, you're doing that to streamline things. You're doing that to help manage the chaos that I mentioned earlier. When you're not communicating about that, though, when all of a sudden you see that, okay, I'm the one who's supposed to be putting in the grocery order and the grocery budget has been cut in half and I didn't even know that, that's when you're going to have a conflict. So that's where keeping each other abreast, again, ideally like a CFO and a COO would do in a Fortune 500 company, meeting regularly, talking regularly, communicating to one another. That's the key.
So assigning the tasks can help get things done. But what happens if someone gets sick or can't do everything? They probably don't have a staff of assistants who can step in.
Totally. And that's the important communication piece. And there's a lot of research about this with the household CFOs particularly. Where we see this go awry is the CFO is maybe doing a great job at managing all the money, but they're only keeping the other person on a need-to-know basis. So they're not cluing the COO into, hey, by the way, I'm doing this with the investments now, or hey, I've started moving our savings over here. And then when something happens to that person, or, if the couple breaks up, the other person doesn't even have the password to get into the account let alone know how much is in the savings.
So how corporate does this get? Is there a room for promotion?
There's a reason we picked CFO and COO as these titles when we're describing it to people. Both people are playing CEO in their own way. So the CFO and the COO get together and the CFO says, moving that money to a high interest savings account actually earned us more money on this. Or we have credit card points we can use for this. And the COO says, that's great because we have so-and-so's wedding coming up. So when they're deciding to go to the wedding together is when, as one, they're both sort of taking on that role of CEO.
That's Wall Street Journal personal finance reporter Julia Carpenter. And that's it for your Money Briefing. Today's show was produced by Ariana Osperu with supervising producer Melanie Roy. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Thanks for listening.